Thank you, Marlene, for this wonderful presentation of us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So I'm going to talk about the problem of income inequality in Kyrgyzstan. And in the beginning, I wanted to show you this picture, which I found on the internet. And it is very funny, although it does reflect the raising concerns about the income inequality in the world, which we are all part of. And in fact, the income inequality has been increasing, and it has become a major problem, especially for developing countries. Since I've been working on the issues of human development for the past 10 years, I wanted to see, can actually our current social policy affect the level of income inequality in Kyrgyzstan? Before we go any further, just to give you a brief context about the income inequality. So that is the gap between the rich and the poor, which is usually expressed in the concentration of income or in the share of total incomes accumulated by different population groups. And the most common indicator to measure income inequality is the Gini coefficient, which runs from 0 to 100%. And the higher the Gini coefficient is, the higher the level of income inequality is. So in this diagram, you see the dynamics of the Gini coefficient for selected former Soviet Union countries. And what we see here that while the other countries of the region had relatively stable trends or relatively small values of the Gini coefficient, the Kyrgyzstan has been increasing. And in 2013, we reached the peak of our Gini coefficient of 46%, and it was the highest value since the time of our independence. Right. And so, despite of the fact that we observed some decreasing trends for the past 2 years, the level of income inequality is still very high, and it is the highest among almost all former Soviet Union countries. If we look more closely at the indicators of income inequality in Kyrgyzstan, we can see that the gap between the rich and the poor is in fact quite huge. So you can see that the average income of the 10% poorest people in 2015 was around $18 per capita monthly, while the average income of the 10% richest people was around $155. But what's more important here is the concentration of income. And you can see that while the share of the total income accumulated by 10% richest people fluctuates around 30%, the share of the total incomes accumulated by 10% poorest people is stable, and it's only 2%. And it is frightening because the problem of income inequality in Kyrgyzstan, it's not just the monetary inequality, but it's a healthcare inequality, educational inequality. High income inequality creates very high social tensions. But surprisingly, it seems that the problem of income inequality has not been popular among the policymakers. If we look at this analysis which I made of the main national development strategies, which sort of determine the development path of the country, we can see how the issue of income inequality tends to disappear from the national documents. So in the early 2000s, we had the whole set of the indicators, goals, policy priorities on income inequality, but in our current strategy, we have only one small indicator on poverty level. And no other measures or targets on income inequality. So there is another problem which sort of aggravates the problem of the issue of income inequality in Kyrgyzstan, and it is instability of economic growth. If you look at the GDP growth, the dynamics of the GDP growth for the past decade, you can see that the growth is very unstable. And I can tell you that there are two main factors which negatively affected the economic growth in Kyrgyzstan. And the first one is the violent power shifts, or the so-called revolutions, which we had in 2005 and 2010. And the other factor is the high dependence on Kumtor gold mining company. And whenever any major political or technical problems in Kumtor occur, we experience either zero, as in 2002, or negative, as in 2012, economic growth. So when the economy fails to provide substantial and inclusive growth to each group of the population, this is where the social policy plays its major role. And in my research, I focused on the social assistance system, which is proclaimed by the government to address the needs of poor and vulnerable people. But if we look, oops, something missing here. All right, so if we look, unfortunately, the slide had disappeared. But if we look at the budget of the social assistance system, which is approximately 5% of the total Republican budget, it's quite a small amount, there is only one type of social benefits which is intended to target the poor people directly. What I mean here that we have, let's say, 5 major types of social benefits, and there is monthly benefits to poor families, the eligibility of which is based on the level of income. And if a household is living below this income level, then it's eligible to receive this social benefit. But for the other types, they are not based on any income threshold, but on a certain list of categories or statuses that the household or an individual should possess. For example, like heroes of the Kyrgyz Republic, or families of the perished military men, which are not necessarily poor. And as a result of that, we have a social assistance which does not support the poor people directly. Yeah, I know what happened. I switched the slide. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So we will get to the social assistance in a minute. But with that, what I was talking about, the economic growth, what I wanted also to add, that the result of this instability of economic growth, we actually have the fact that GDP growth at the lower part of the income distribution is lower, which results in the fact that we have a uniform growth of the real incomes of different population types. Like here, for example, the average growth of the 10% poorest people is 6%, and it is the same as the average growth of the real incomes of the richest people, right? But for income inequality to decline, it is essential to have the outrunning growth of the incomes of the poorest people so that the inequality could shrink, yes? So now we're getting back to this slide with our social assistance system. So as I said, there is only one type of social benefits which is based on the level of income and which actually able to target the poor people directly, right? So as a result of this inefficient, not poor-oriented social assistance system, we have the fact that the average growth of the social assistance benefits is the highest among the richest people. You can see on this slide that while the poorest people had, like, on average, 7% growth of the real benefits that they received, the richest people had 20%. And on top of that, there is a problem with distribution of these monthly benefits to poor families, because sometimes rich people, they falsely report the level of their income, or there are any other problems connected to administration of these benefits. And it results in the fact that richest people not only have the highest growth of the real benefits, but they also receive a certain proportion of poor family benefits. As for example, here you can see that even though the amount is very small on average, but still there are some rich households which receive poor families' benefits, which is nonsense. Yeah. So at the end of my research, I wanted to see what level of income inequality would be in Kyrgyzstan if we had an efficient or poor-oriented social assistance system. So I conducted a simple math exercise, and I estimated the hypothetical income of the different population groups after I redistributed the social benefits from 50% richest people towards the poorest one. Right? And so what I found out is, first of all, that after we take away all of these benefits from the richest people, the average decline in their average income is almost zero. So the amount of benefits that they receive is so small compared to the level of their income, so they do not really play any role. But when we add these benefits to the income of the 10% poorest people, we observe a 10% increase in their average income, which is a notable increase. And so in terms of income inequality, that means that we are actually able to almost double the share of the total income accumulated by 10% poorest people, which is reflected at this slide, which is a newly acquired Lorentz curve. It is a graphical representation of the Gini coefficient. And you can see the blue line. This is the perfect equality line, where each group of the population receives equal shares of income. You can see the green line, which is the actual distribution of income in Kyrgyzstan. And you can see a red line, which is a new income distribution after the redistribution of social benefits. And you can see that this red line is becoming closer to the blue line, which means that we can reduce inequality. And the effect is rather small because, well, as I said, the amount of benefits is small and the budget for social assistance is small, but there is still an effect. And it means that if you want to use the social assistance system as one of the tools to take on income inequality, we are able to do so. So, in terms of my recommendations, what I would suggest right now is to reintroduce the national goals on income inequality in our national strategies. And 2017 is a very good occasion because our current strategy ends in 2017, and soon the government will need to develop or will need to come up with a new strategy. So that's exactly where the new or reintroduced goals could go into. And the other recommendation is, well, we are now at the transition of the transition process towards global sustainable development goals. And one of the sustainable development goals is to reduce inequality. And we've already established a governmental committee on adaptation of the sustainable development goals. And so within this committee, we should establish an interministerial working group to discuss the possibility of reforming the social assistance system as one of the steps towards achieving the sustainable development goals on inequality and towards reducing the income inequality in Kyrgyzstan. That was it. Thank you very much.